Welcome, everybody. I'm Chelsea Robbins. I'm here with Joe McNamara for our first We Are Our Heroes podcast in our new series. And we're joined today by Chad Squires and Coletun Long. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for being here and participating in this. And it's really all about you guys. Today we're here to talk about this incredible accomplishment that you guys both have achieved recently. So I'll turn it over to you. We're here to talk about the Advanced Financial Crimes Investigations certification.
Yep.
So how did it come about? Chad, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start with that. So me and Coletun, we met probably about like 2.5 years ago when he came to the company. Not too long after, we were going for our CAMS. Both got that around the same time in the summer of, was that 2017?
2018.
2018.
Yeah.
From there, we started reaching out to John Byrne just for more advice of just because we knew his mark in the AML industry and everything, and looking for advice from him. And he had recommended the advanced CAMS certification to us, so we were all on board. We tried to do it right away in like October, but we had like a month to like kind of let everybody know we were going to try and do this, so it was just like too much too fast. So they did it again in April, went for that, and it was an awesome experience. We didn't really know what we were getting into with it compared to the exam with the CAMS and how that whole setting is. It's more just self-study. This was you come in person for like a conference for 3 days with I think there was about 20 individuals, professionals from the industry from all over, people from Ireland, Trinidad,
wow.
Barbados, all over the U.S., different financial institutions that you could think of. So you got to hear like just people's experiences, how they do their work, the differences between like what we do and they do. It was also cool because everybody kind of knew AML RightSource when we said it. It wasn't like,
that's great.
Yeah, nobody was
Cool.
like, what's that? Everybody was like, oh,
There's
yeah,
a
we know
shameless
AML.
plug in there.
Yeah.
Chad. Thank you. Means I'm doing my job right.
That's awesome. No, because it is different when you're working with professionals that, say, are working at a specific institution.
Yeah,
versus people like
I was
us
definitely
who
excited to hear
touch
that
a lot of
because
things.
everybody was like right away like burnt up. Like even because there was a couple people there from Capital One.
Oh, yeah.
So they were like coming to AML RightSource like the week after. So it was
Very
kind of
cool.
funny.
That's awesome. So right before this, I was on the website studying up, and I saw that there's a list of graduates.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, let's take a look. And obviously, Control F for your names, and you're on there in case you haven't
Yeah.
checked it.
Oh, thank God. Okay, yeah.
In case you haven't checked it. But then I was kind of curious because it didn't take me very long to scroll through to the bottom of the list. And so I counted. And if I can count, as of today, 166 graduates worldwide.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
I mean, that's a really small elite group if you think about the scope of AML, BSA across the entire world. So that's amazing in
Definitely.
itself. But I'd love to hear more about like the actual process of it and some of the challenges or some of the things that you felt really prepared for, like maybe at that conference or the self-study portion. There's like a research paper also,
yeah, so that
right?
there is a white paper is like your final task. It's like what
Okay.
you're going to get your certification for. The program is more just networking and just enhancing your skills and more education and just ways. The whole purpose I felt of it, because it was taught by like Dennis Lermel and Angel Swithwire instructors. So Angel was more financial institution background, while Dennis he's law enforcement. He does it all. I mean, he's like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, but pretty much the breakdown was you have like pre-class assignments. So what they would do is, I think it was like 1 to 2 months before we went to Charlotte for the conference in May, they gave you kind of some reading material. I think it was like 20 to 25 different kind of articles in kind of, it was almost like you were doing your own investigation. So what we had, it was actually a really interesting one, and it was about the Silk Road. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but the Silk Road was just a dark web type of, or a dark online marketplace, dark web style, and they pretty much showed us like transactionally what it looked like, whether there was any red flags, and then they pretty much just said, what would you do in this situation? Would you file on this user? Would you create a SAR? Or do you think this activity is not suspicious? And then we got into more detail as it went on. So it was almost you were able to do your own independent investigation, just to kind of prep you, get ready for the class, kind of what it was going to be about. There's a couple webinars, I think, as well.
Yeah,
webinars that we watched.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, yeah, I mean, it was just preparing for that. Then we had that 3-day live classroom, like Chad talked about, which was really cool. Just networking, reaching out to different people from different walks of life, and just getting their perspective on things. I just think that's really cool. I mean, we have a background that's, BSA ML based, as others could have that sanctions background or stuff along those lines. So it was really cool just to work with those guys in this program, and just improve our skills overall as an AML investigator.
Yeah, and I think with the law enforcement, with Dennis being there, he kind of just showed you how our work is utilized by law enforcement, rather than us just kind of wondering as we are kind of like a middleman in this. We're giving you all the facts that we can give you from the financial institution to help you further investigate, the bad guys in these scenarios. So it was cool to see what they do with the SARs, how the SAR can be most useful to them. What's the best way to write a SAR narrative in order for law enforcement to pick it up and be okay, we got to investigate this now. So that was definitely cool to just kind of see how our job does help, catch criminals in the end. But in the program too, yeah, that showed that about how law enforcement and us work together. Showed just different writing tools like investigation and interview processes, as far as if something's going wrong within your institution, what's the best way to interview around without letting everybody know that you're interviewing around because something's going wrong, and how to get those details and how to get stuff out of people without them really knowing what you're trying to get out. So it was cool to kind of put yourself in the law enforcement shoe too, of saying I'm investigating from this way, rather than being behind that desk and just investigating from the computer.
So I also did some research on my end, and mostly just having brief conversations with you guys in passing in the hallway. You guys had mentioned that there were pretty much 2 tracks to this certification, right? Could you tell us a little bit more about what those were, kind of how those laid out, and eventually how you guys decided which path to take? Yeah,
so I think the 2 paths that at the time the advanced CAMS certifications offered was the audit CAMS audit, and then the CAMS FCI. Now, if you saw in the news that they just offer the certified global sanctions specialist, I'm pretty sure it is. So that's just a new certification you can get, advanced certification. But I think we discussed it a little bit in the beginning. I think Chad wanted to go more the audit route, and he can speak to that. And I was more so the financial crimes route. I just enjoy the financial crimes. I mean, it's just ever changing. The environment of financial crimes is ever changing. Fraudsters, bad actors are going to find ways to defraud a platform, and they just try to make a living out of it. So it's our job to try to be one step ahead of them, to limit them from doing so. But for us, I mean, we had those 2 options. We chose the financial crimes investigator route. I think that was pretty much the nail on the head for us and what we do on a daily basis. But again, Chad could speak more to that as well.
Yeah, no, I think we made the right choice by going the FCI route. It definitely fit with what we're doing on a daily basis, and which was one of the nice things when we got in there, because from our skills and just our day-to-day, we're writing SARs each day, we're investigating cases each day. A lot of the stuff in the program was in regards to writing SARs, doing investigations and that style. So it really was we just moved into almost we were just doing another day at work, which helped us kind of stand out, I felt in the program, and help with others, because there was people from different backgrounds that hadn't even done investigations. They just were interested in getting more into financial crimes investigation. So that was definitely cool. I was initially going FCI, I was going audit, because John Byrne, when I had asked him, he had recommended that just because we are doing investigations every day. So we are kind of have a good sense of the FCI side, just to get more of you could do audit and get more into that field, since you kind of know more just about the FCI right now.
Yeah.
But, after we kind of back and forth for a while, since we didn't go in October. So we had the whole 6 months to kind of figure out what exactly we're going to do. And after just reading and doing more research into it, the FCI just definitely fit with us. And I thought the whole program and everything turned out exactly and even probably better than we thought it was going to.
Cool. Yeah. And so you guys also touched on the fact that, you kind of came to this realization that, hey, we've been here for a certain amount of time with the company and we love what we do, but we're interested in taking it a step further. Could you kind of walk us through kind of what that mentality was, how you guys came to that conclusion, and I guess really where we should have started with, how did you come across this?
You want to take that?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me is that I love competition, and I don't like being complacent. And with a background in college sports and stuff like that, it's just I'm not complacent with where I'm at. I want to keep pushing the envelope, seeing how far I can go. And with where we were at, we got our CAMS, and it was great. It's a very prestigious certification, but we thought that there was another level that we could tap into, and I don't even think that we're necessarily done tapping into the next level and the next level. I think there's still more to go and more to come. But I think the biggest thing for us is we wanted to be hands-on. We wanted to do something that's even more important and keep climbing that ladder. And I think, for us, having John Byrne as a resource for everything he does, and to listen, take the time out of his day to speak to us and give us guidance on what we should do. If we want to keep pursuing this career field, if we want to keep climbing the ladder, so to speak, in the AML field, what's next for us? And reaching out to him and him being so honest with his guidance and giving us, something then to reach for with this CAMS FCI, it just really pushed us to want to get it as soon as possible. And we had those internal meetings to see, hey, can we do this? No, it's too soon. Maybe the funds aren't there just yet, but keep this on our radar, and maybe we'll come back around to it. But I mean, I love that I got this certification. I love the CAMS. I love the CAMS FCI. But we're also thinking, hey, what's next? We want to keep building on this. This is not, we got it, now we're done. We want to keep going.
Yeah, I think, our competitive sides definitely keep pushing us to want to get better, want to keep going. But I think a really important part to this is, we took a really interest into this job and this career. And really, once we found a love for what we were doing, it wasn't just a job anymore. And we kind of started looking at this as a career. And now we're looking at it as a career. We're looking at how can we progress and be the best in this career, which has definitely, I think, helped us to keep us always thinking of what's next. How can we be better? What can we do to be better than we were the day before? So overall, our competitiveness of both sides, this being a career that we want, and wanting to be recognized in this industry. So that's kind of what's driving us.
So I find when I talk to a lot of people here at the company, it's kind of what you guys are both just saying about financial crime specifically, right? So we have so many intelligent people here, so many people that could do so many things. You can take these skills and apply them right across so many industries, but there's something about financial crime and working in this industry that's just sort of fulfilling. And I think you're both saying it, but can you speak a little bit more about what it means to you to be a part of the industry, and also, what you want other people at the company to know about, maybe new people, for example, that are just coming on board, about what you find so interesting about it, but also what makes you feel good about the work that you do?
You want me to take this one first?
Go ahead.
No, I think this work is very fulfilling. Being an investigator, growing up, watching shows, seeing detectives and stuff like that was always an interest to me. But how do you get there? Mm-hmm. And I didn't know this was the career field for me, and kind of just fell in for me. And I took a liking to it. And I really want to continue to grow in it. And the reason for that is because, I feel like I am doing a difference with the work. I am helping stop criminals from continuing to conduct illegal activities. I am finding ways to work with law enforcement in some capacity to help them do their job better, doing ways to help protect people that can't really, protect themselves with hackers coming in and taking finances and causing fraud. So anything that I can do to kind of, help out in this area has been, very fulfilling in that sense, and something I look forward to continuing to do each day.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is just wanting to be a part of something bigger. And at first, when at least I came on, even the beginning stages, you didn't feel like your work was meaningless. And not too many jobs can you go to work and it doesn't really feel like work. And I know that sounds cliche and it sounds corny, but when we started doing this, it just felt right, so to speak. I mean, when I came in, and I've worked on multiple clients, but just being able to see the difference you make, and not necessarily in the law enforcement aspect, because we don't see where these SARs go, but to see kind of this type of activity going on a certain platform, and to know that you're putting a stop to it, at least in the best of your ability, it makes you feel like you are a part of something bigger. And with different projects I've been on, there's been some pretty dark things that have gone on certain platforms, and it just really leaves a bad taste in your mouth. So being able to say, you gathered the information, you put together the SAR regarding a specific individual and illegal activities they conduct, and you send that off to law enforcement, hoping in the end that these guys get caught. I mean, I think that's the most fulfilling thing for me. It's not just we come here, we sit at a desk, and we investigate suspicious activity. It's, we are part of something far bigger than us. And I think Vincent can attest to that with the help of us. They're able to go after, and law enforcement are able to go after these people that, they're just hiding in plain sight. And you don't really know, what's going on behind the scenes. But being able to do that, being able to put these suspicious activity reports together and feel like your work is going to, a meaningful purpose, I think is one of the most rewarding things. And that's, to the same token, I think that's one of the most interesting things about this company. If you were to come here and work for this company, I think just putting everything in perspective on what you do on a daily basis and how it affects almost like the chain, the assembly line, so to speak, of the process of finding the activity, filing on the activity, disseminating the information to the proper channels, and then going after these people. I think that's really, really cool. So just being a part of something bigger, that's kind of the most rewarding thing.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely what's made me want to make this career, is how fulfilling it is. And it's made me as far as these certifications and trying to get better and be more, it's a want to be able to do more, to help, everyone out with what I can do, to do our part for the bigger picture, in a sense. So it's definitely gave us a platform to continue to grow and continue to try and be the best that we can in this industry.
Yeah, and I think that idea, that growth mindset, right, that there's always something we can do better, there's always more for us to learn, more people that we can involve, right, is something that I hope you two can really run with here now, because I think there are a lot of people who will be interested, even following this, podcast, that will hopefully reach out to both of you and want to know more about how they can be involved and things that they can learn, resources, things like that. But I want to talk a little bit too about sort of the day-to-day here for both of you. And you're talking about, investigations that you've gone through in the past. And I can think of some, that I've been through in my few years here that just sort of stick with you, and you kind of wonder, what did come of that? It's kind of neat for you guys. You got to see, sort of the other end, working more with somebody from the law enforcement side. But I always think, for me, the typology, that really bothers me, or that I guess makes me feel the most uncomfortable when I'm working it, is financial exploitation, right? Elder abuse or vulnerable, something like that, where you're just I'm sitting there and I'm thinking of all the old people I know, right? And
how sweet they are.
How sweet they are, and how hard they work their whole lives.
Me.
And you're just reading it, and I'm oh gosh, I have to write this SAR, and I really hope they catch them. Is there a typology like that, or is there even an investigation that you remember?
No, I would agree with you on that. Financial exploitation of older people is definitely a huge bummer, especially when we do the AMLUs and we see go through those. Those are the heartbreaking ones when they bring up the recordings from the news channel to see sweet granny that got
just took to the cleaners.
Straight to the cleaner, yeah. And there's just so many different kinds that they're all give you the same feeling though.
Yeah, I've had two prominent cases from prior clients. I think the one kind of plays into this was a elder exploitation case where the individual, I think, lost over $250,000 to, it was everything under the sun. It was a romance scam. It was bank fraud.
This one
it was
too.
credit debit card fraud. It was identity theft. It was everything. And, the moral of the story was this man met this woman, younger woman. He was an older gentleman, met her at a mechanic shop or whatever, and they just hit it off, and she took a liking to him. And, it took off from there. It went from, one lie to the next. My daughter died and I need money for the headstone, to I'm getting a divorce and I need money and I'm going through a tough time right now. And the poor gentleman, said, all right, we'll have this agreement here, but it was only, a verbal agreement. It wasn't anything written. And once, that was the case, things started to get more and more out of hand. She started playing her part even better, thinking that this guy, or she was in love with this guy, and this guy thought the same. And she got access to his accounts and information, started siphoning off all of his funds to her, took out a reverse mortgage.
Oof.
So it was pretty bad. And, when I was doing this is back in 2018, the activity occurred, I think, in 2017. So at that time, he was just now pursuing a civil case against her. So it was heartbreaking. To see someone at that age, that's all their retirement, that's all their savings. And to have someone kind of dupe them in that way, and someone that knew him close to him was saying he doesn't have this, he doesn't use this platform. Why does he keep saying that he's losing money from this platform? He doesn't even have this. He doesn't even know how to work this. And it's heartbreaking for sure. And it's happened. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen to my grandfather through calls. Saying how I'm in Canada and I got a DUI and I don't want to tell my parents. Can you, wire me $5,000? And I'm like, thank God you called me, because I'm not in Canada. Yeah. I'm just sitting at home. But that's they prey on the sweetness of the grandparents, and it's heartbreaking. But on the other side of the spectrum, I had another case which was a terrorist financing case, and usually on this platform, for my prior client, we didn't get to work these, but you still had to gather information to kind of support your decision on why you think it is. And it was really weird. It was a specific alert to a demographic or a certain area of the world. And, I was just doing my normal review, and everything looked normal, but there were some payments to a specific individual for large amounts that I didn't understand where they were going. So we kind of have to do our due diligence on that. Where are the funds coming from? Where are they going? And just like a quick Google search of this individual brought up his Facebook, and a lot of the stuff was just all this hate against America. So, further research found that this guy was preaching the Quran, but not the Quran that is taught. It's a very sadistic version of it. Mm-hmm. And then this was to inmates in prison, and then he was actually in the news for trying to orchestrate a car bombing in Chicago. A lot of this stuff, there's a lot of red flags. And then essentially what she was doing was he was also pleading his allegiance to ISIS. He was accepting donations. So putting all that together, I said, this is a home run. Let's get this guy off the platform, escalate this up to the people that need to see this. But going back to the prior question, that's the stuff that's the most rewarding. Helping out the guy that's exploited, the elder that's exploited, or getting this guy, behind bars as quick as possible, or at least within the eyes of law enforcement, get in front of them. So, stuff like that. Those are the two biggest ones for me in the almost 3 years I've been doing this that have really stuck out, that are the most memorable. Yeah, and
it's QA for a few projects, you come across a lot of different things, especially with sexual exploitation, terrorist financing, and just there's so much that we can do to just do the external research into these cases. Don't just think, oh, maybe it's just a one-off. I don't have to think about it too much. When you have the chances to go into a case like Colton's saying with this terrorist finance case, or sexual exploitation, or this financial exploitation of an elder, it's just really important because we have the opportunity to really help out with these cases and give as much information as possible. So anytime you have the potential or the intuition that something's just not right here, you just got to dive further. And like in both these cases that you're talking about, took it to every which way we can go. How can we investigate from this side? Is he connected with this? Can this connection bring us to this side? So I just think it's really important just not to just think like, oh, maybe it's just this scenario. Try and give like the benefit of the doubt in these type of cases, because our work can do like a big difference here. I think back to the cases from just because I've been on a lot of fintech projects, so you see a lot of fraud.
Sure.
And anytime fraud, usually there's always somebody who got wronged pretty hard in their side. So, I mean, the fraud ones definitely bum me out, but that kind of goes back to that financial exploitation of the elders. Yeah. It's probably like the one that probably hits to the core for me the most, especially because you can always see it on the news and stuff and just see like.
It is. It's sad. But I think that intuition that you're talking about that we develop in analysts here is so important. But I'm wondering also if you could share some of like the tips or things that you learned about what is important to include in a SAR, for example. Like what is Dennis talking about?
So what they were saying is that they want you to come out right at the gate and give all the eye-popping things. Like, so if you think you busted potential drug trafficking or like financial exploitation of an elder, come out and just say it. Even
just
if you don't,
with that, right?
If you don't have like what they were saying was, if you have the belief and you have some support for it, then come out and say it, because the worst thing that could happen is you're wrong and it just didn't happen. But if you never said anything and it's happening, then it's just going to continue to go on and go on. So their perspective was, if we have a hunch and we think we're the middleman in this scenario. So our job is to just inform them and just let them know, hit the red flag. So if you think you have an idea that something really bad and something high risk is happening, come out and just say it right out the gates, because the law enforcement is getting so many SARs that sometimes they only have enough time to read the first paragraph. And if they're not getting enough out of it and they don't know where you're taking them with it, they might not go that deep into it and the investigation might not happen. So it's important to like get the big red flags out there right out the gate in that first paragraph with your typologies, and like the amount of money that's actually involved. The loss amount, just so they know like how big of a case this really is and how important it really is.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, I think one of the hottest topics there was the SAR and what to put in a SAR and media group exercises, putting our SARs together, and everyone was different, and even within our groups, we had discussion, well, we need to put this in, well, that's not really important, or this is important. And, coming from our background, we thought, oh, this is how we need to do it. But really how we were shaped is just based off of our clients.
Absolutely.
And client need.
They're all different, right?
Exactly.
Every client you
and that
work
was the
for,
hard part of explaining
they want
to
your
them.
SAR drafted a different way.
We were telling them like, we
amazing.
want to write it like this, but sometimes to the client's need, you got to write it a certain type of way.
Yeah. So when we were doing it, I think they read one of mine, and it was like verbatim speaking exactly to the typologies, and they're like, this person knows their FinCEN report exactly to a T because they're speaking exactly to the check boxes. And it's like, well, that was my prior client, so that was my expertise in it. But like Chad said, put the stuff out there, put the typologies out there, that the eye-catching stuff. If it's drug trafficking, human trafficking, whatever it is, put that total, give us the amount, give us the date range, and then give us some subjects. And because that's pretty much, they got maybe 1 to 5 minutes, that catches their eye right away. Okay, then I want to read the rest of it. But if it's $2,000, $1,000, you're saying it's potentially fraud, you're adding too much fluff to it, they're not going to waste their time. Give us something, give us the concise details, and we'll go from there, and we'll decide how we move with that.
That's like the elevator pitch, right?
Yeah.
They pretty much say, wow me, otherwise I have to move on.
Right.
Don't be afraid to be wrong in this case, because we're trying to give information. Like if we're wrong, nothing's bad happening on the other end. It just means that, this case didn't turn out to be as high risk as we thought. So actually, it might be a good thing in the end.
Well, it's a win-win, right?
It's a win-win for you.
At the end of the day, it's, to your point, it's exactly, it's either really bad, and everything that we think is actually coming to fruition, and at that point we have to be waving red flags that are on fire. Or the flip side is hey, we thought it was this bad. Turns out it really wasn't. But hey, nobody's worse off for that.
Exactly.
We turned over the stones. We followed up on the leads. We made sure that we did our due diligence.
Yep.
And in some cases, right, you're required to file. Yes, you might not be bringing down like, a real bad criminal, but something weird happened.
Yeah.
It fits the mold. We have to file on it, right?
Definitely. And that can also lead to just more like now that person at least is on notice.
Right,
and
exactly.
is being
Their
watched.
Social Security numbers, in the system, they can be pulled up on different reports if they need to be, whatever it is. And I think most of the time when we're hearing from clients about, their audits and their exams, they're talking about the scrutiny they're under for the cases they don't file. Right? Much more so than the cases they actually end up filing SARs on, because the auditors come in and they look and they say, well, why didn't you file here? Right? They're not really looking at your SARs and saying you didn't have to file this one.
Yeah.
They're looking at what you excluded from that. So
Like the have it but won't need it versus need
Yes.
it won't have it. Yeah.
Exactly. Like you had all the information here and it should have been a SAR filing. You made the wrong decision.
Yep.
Right.
Versus, like you guys are saying, the worst thing that happens is that law enforcement passes.
Definitely. That's
Right?
our biggest
They
risk
don't-
in our job is that we
they don't
could
go for
potentially
it.
dismiss activity that needs to be reported.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going back, just have that intuition to think if something doesn't seem right, it's probably not right.
Yes, absolutely. And the more you review, right, the better that intuition
Exactly,
gets.
yeah.
I mean,
And that was one of the things they definitely pushed in our program. They definitely went through like the investigative mindset, because you got to be thinking like the bad guy. Because if this bad guy is doing his job well, then his goal is for you not to get caught. So you
Yes.
kind of got to think of like, what would you be doing to not get caught? What are the things? Like obviously he's going to try and say the right thing anytime the organization he's working with is asking questions about his weird activity. But you have to put yourself in the mindset of, I can't just be a cookie cutter, check the box, I did this, I did that, nothing came up. I guess I dismiss in this case. Got to think of, what would they be doing to hide the fact that they want this illicit activity not to be found, and just keep diving further into different ways that I can, especially if you have the intuition to think like this just isn't right, it's not adding up.
Well, it's like a dynamic field, right? And I think from what I've seen, and again, I have kind of this outsider's perspective, just because for the most part I get to highlight what we do really well, but I don't necessarily get to see what we do on a daily basis. But I can assume, right, that from a perspective of an analyst or an advanced certified guy that we have sitting here, the field of play kind of changes day to day, right? It's, to your point, you can't just go down your typical checkbox or checklist and check the boxes, and if it doesn't fit, you're moving on. So, I mean, and I see it constantly around the office. Guys get together, and I think it's one of the most interesting dynamics here is the fact that if you're struggling with something or you find something that doesn't quite make sense to you, it's okay to just kind of pull your buddy or your workmate aside and say, hey, can we talk through this? Can we figure out what I'm missing here, or what should I do here?
Yeah, I think that's one of the best parts here is you have so many resources to go and ask, for help, because the amount of times, especially in the QA role, just like a new analyst comes, they reviewing a case, they're stuck somewhere, they just don't have an understanding what's going on. The amount of times I've looked at it and just known from a past case that I've worked and seen like the exact same scenario and can just pull it all together just from knowing past case experience is, it happens every day.
It's like a pay it forward mentality.
Exactly,
Hey,
yeah.
buddy, I've been where you've been. Here's what.
So there's so many resources around here with so many different experiences with all the different projects and different cases we've seen. Like there's a good chance that you could ask, like you're saying, the person next to you, hey, I'm stuck on this one. Have you ever seen this type of activity before? And they might have a whole story for you. Exactly like, this is probably what's going on. This is what you need to look into. Why don't you check over in here than this side? And you could probably find exactly what you're looking for. So definitely there's so many different ways to investigate, which is great to get resources and kind of pick their brain of what they're seeing and what's making them go there. Like, you saw that. Why did it make you go further this way?
Yeah, and I think another big thing with that is just checking the ego at the door, because a lot of people think, if I go ask someone, it makes it seem like I don't know what I'm doing or I don't know what I should be looking for. But really, the financial crimes landscape is ever changing. There's new things that pop up daily. There's new fraud trends we have on my client that it's like you got to be up on it, and it could be at a moment's notice they could be doing something else, and we don't want to dismiss this activity. Let's take a deeper look at it, get an alternative perspective. So, for me, it's just like I don't have all the answers. Being able to be check your ego and be like, you know what? Let's see if someone else has the answer. Maybe someone else has seen this before, like Chad just spoke to, and maybe he or she can help me kind of steer me in the right direction, whether it's filing or dismissing. I just haven't seen everything. Just being able to reach out, to utilize your resources, and just to be humble. 3 years is nothing. I think that I know something, but really I don't. Compared to a guy like John Byrne, man, he's seen it all. So it's just like being able to reach out, and even at that level, I'm sure John still reaches out to people and like, you know what, this is a little weird. What is your perspective on this? So, just being open to different things, being open to different perspectives. Maybe they have more aggravating factors than you have mitigating factors, and in that case, it tips the scale one way. So just being open to that stuff, checking the ego at the door, and really utilizing your resources of getting an alternative perspective and reaching out to someone at the company.
Yeah, and these case investigations are complex, and they're not easy work, especially if you haven't done this work before. So sometimes it does help just, talk things out. I see this, they have this mitigating factors, but there's so many red flags over here. Like, how do I go about this case? It can just really help just to kind of like talk through the things you're seeing, because there's a lot of
there is, and
complexity that goes into these cases.
The other really cool thing about our company specifically is that most of us come from random backgrounds. I don't want to say random, probably not random.
There's a large spectrum.
There's a huge
diverse,
spectrum. It's so
right.
unique. Like, I don't know about either of you, but I came from the fine art world.
Mm-hmm.
So before this, I managed an art gallery, and it happened that I had an analyst on a prior project that was reviewing an art gallery, doing an EDD, and she was like, I do not know what these transactions are supposed to look like, right? And it made it all the way up to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what these should look like. I used to do this, right? And so you go and you collaborate, and it's so important, it's so unique, and it's all kinds of things, right? It's not necessarily prior careers, but it's hobbies, It's all sorts of different things that you can say, oh, I know that person is into, whatever it may be, and I'll go ask them because they might have an idea about it.
Well, and the other part of it too, to your point, we hire people from all walks of life, and what you end up finding is there's this overwhelming amount of support that comes with
Yes.
it. I mean, we take you two as a prime example. You guys came in. I'm sure you're not exactly the same, but through the drive and work ethic and just that pursuit of further knowledge and just to move up, kind of drove you to where you guys are today. In terms of looking back on that path and what that looks like for somebody that to Chelsea's point, might have just come in or is just starting to kind of wade themselves into the shallow end of this industry, what's some sage words of advice from some advanced certified gents here that you would hope that they could carry with them through their careers?
Well, I would say this, just in respect to like how we've gotten to all these certifications and trying to keep going further. It's really important to have somebody in your corner. It's really important to have somebody that has like similar interests in this kind of field. Like you said, we're not exactly the same, but we have common interests. We have a common drive, and we want to keep getting better. And it's a lot easier to do these kind of things when you got support and you got somebody you can throw stuff off the wall with, and you got somebody who's thinking of ideas too. Because I know, trying to think of going into CAMS alone for the first time was kind of like, it was scary. It was more like, I don't really know how much support I have. I've never done anything like this. Am I going to keep myself motivated? Am I going to keep myself disciplined? So it's nice to have somebody there because it's almost like he's not, behind my back making sure I'm studying or anything, but it's like, I know he's studying, so I should be here trying to be it better too.
100%.
So I think it's really important to, buddy system it up. I like the buddy system. And I think, like you're saying, it's a sense of community here. Everybody's got support. Yeah. So come in, make friends, make relationships, network, and, find somebody who, has a similar drive, doesn't have to have all the similar interests, but just wants to get better and will, be a support for you.
Yeah, and I think, I'm going to butcher this quote, but I think it goes something along the lines of, don't follow the path, go where there's no path and create your own. And I think, with Chad and I think I can attribute a lot of it, to having Chad going along the process with me, but also just wanting to do something different. And when we started this, it was relatively unknown. I mean, we didn't know anyone there wasn't anyone.
Well, I would argue it's still pretty.
Yeah.
166 people.
That was definitely one of the most exciting parts about it, is how exclusive it felt, and how it felt like, this can be like an elite group, and it's just such a small thing, and it's going to grow. But
no, I mean, it's just like it was relatively unknown, and Chad's like, let's do this. And I think, don't be hesitant to do something because no one's done it. I think that would give you all the more reason to do it. And if you have to jump through some hurdles and go about things a different way, maybe we don't have everything put together and organized, but maybe you can go ahead and do that yourself and just show, like, hey, I'm really serious about this. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm passionate about. And we had our discussions with people inside the company, and they made it work for us, and they allowed us to do this. So, the buddy system, I think, is huge, but also just create your own path. We didn't ask someone to give us this. We were just trying to, put out feelers and say, hey, what's the next step here, John? Can you help us out? Just guide us. This is the kind of the path we want to go down. What else can we do to, be a more invaluable asset to the company? And, giving us that guidance in that direction, we're like, okay, we're doing that. We haven't heard of anyone doing it. But we're going to do it. We'll be the guinea pigs. We'll see how it goes. And, I think we are much better off for doing it. I think, the whole process was awesome, and putting us, giving that live classroom feel, people from different walks of life, being able to network, just pick people's brains on kind of what they do on a daily basis and then what we do, is just really rewarding. So, again, going back to it, I would just try to do something if you're getting passionate about this. Really try to figure out, what specifically you're passionate about. Is it audit? Is it financial crimes? Is it sanctions? And then really try to just create your own path with it.
Yeah, because, I think the message, too, that, has been kind of driven home, like, since we joined the company is, own your career. Yeah. If you want to continue to grow, own it. Go out of your way. Reach out to higher ups and find ways that you can get more involved. How can I do better? How can I move up faster? What can I do to be more recognized? I think we've taken a big initiative to always just keep reaching out anytime we feel stagnant, to figure out a way, what can we do to keep this thing moving and keep going in the right direction? Because it's easy to get stagnant. It's easy to just fall in place and just be happy with what's going on, especially when everything you're doing well at your job, everything's going smooth, you're getting through, everything's fine. But you got to find a way to keep pushing yourself, and because if you stay stagnant, then things can just go along, and you might just stay in the same place for just too long, and then while other people that are trying to own their career will surpass, and you'll wonder why, because I'm doing my job, I'm doing everything fine, nobody's saying anything wrong about me, but at the end of the day,
if anybody's saying anything at all,
exactly,
that's seriously clutch advice. I think really don't sit and let things pass you by when you have the same opportunity to get involved yourself.
Definitely. And from the experiences of reaching out, it is a community here. Everybody is here to help you out. Nobody is trying to do anything to not, make your career better and make you happier at work. So if you reach out, they are willing to help, and they will, do anything to try and help you to be the best at your career, I think. And
also just step outside your comfort zone. I don't think I didn't go to Charlotte, being super comfortable. It was going to be in a room full of people that probably were way more knowledgeable and way more experienced than Chad and I. And to just go in there and be a little uncomfortable and push yourself a little bit and make, new relationships, professional relationships. I think that was the biggest thing. Don't get caught in being comfortable. A lot of people get caught in just doing things that are comfortable. We come here every day, and it's like, oh, I like the daily routine, how it is. But, taking 3 days off, going down to Charlotte, having a conference, listening to Angel and Dennis, and really being, immersed in an environment to where you're using everything you've learned, and you're trying to see how that falls into place with, the law enforcement side, the financial institution side, but also with people that, are your colleagues in that field. So just step outside your comfort zone, do something that's not, maybe you don't feel 100% about, but maybe it's going to pay off in the end.
Yeah.
So could we also advise these guys that are listening to step outside their comfort zone, and let's say that there's a burning question that they might have to come and approach either one of you guys about, whether it's your journey through this advanced CAMS certification or anything else that you guys might have experienced, maybe I'm speaking for you, but as I look at what you guys have been able to accomplish and where your mentality really lies, I think there's a lot to be gained. Just from having a conversation like this.
Definitely, yeah. Reach out because no one's a mind reader. No one can just know if you really want to do it, but yeah, you don't want to step out of your comfort zone. You got to take the initiative. You got to reach out, and just everybody's open to helping, especially us. If anybody ever had any questions or just wanted to figure out what's the first step that I need to take, what's the best initiative to get where I want to get. There's a lot of outlets for support and help, and we're two of them.
Yeah, and just paying it forward, we wouldn't have had this opportunity without the guidance of John Byrne. So taking what we learned from John and just paying it forward and being a resource for people. I wish we had even more resources before we started this, but that was just, what we had. So I would love to be able to help anyone who is thinking about, whether it's the CAMS or the CAMS FCI, that process, any of the questions they have. Was it worth it? How was it hard to do the white paper? How was the live classroom? Any of those questions, I would love to take the time. Just please reach out and ask questions. That's the biggest thing. Reach out, ask questions, and I'd be happy to help to the best of my knowledge, because that's how we started, and it's only right to just pay that forward.
Well, that's how we grow.
Yes.
Yeah. You find new things out about yourself. Even this whole certification. I never viewed myself as a writer, but here I am now, published
writers.
Yeah,
both of you,
and have a chance. Yeah, and can continue to write and stuff like that. And so it's opened up new doors and new possibilities that weren't even in my horizon a couple years ago.
That's really great. So last thing, we'll wrap it up. Do you have an idea of what's next? Or are you guys still sort of researching, putting feelers out for that next step?
I think I'm going to continue to write smaller pieces. I don't think I'm going to continue to just keep doing white papers for a little bit, just because it was very intensive. And, but yeah, with everything changing in with our industry and how things change basically daily, there's always different topics to write about and different interests of mine. So it's definitely something I want to keep going into. As far as certifications, I think if I were, CFT is definitely of interest to me. CFE, Certified Fraud Examiner, would be another one. But yeah, still researching kind of what's next, just trying to figure out, how not to remain stagnant and just how to keep just evolving in this career.
I have to do a shameless plug here before Coletun goes.
Shameless.
Chad, you mentioned, the fact that you didn't think at any point that you'd really want to be a writer, but all of a sudden here you are, you're published.
Yeah.
Shameless plug here for another internal program that we do have, the guest authorship program. It's something that, we're starting to see some decent progress with, and something we're extremely excited about. And essentially it's for any analyst who are above, that is passionate about a particular topic. It's normally a 600 to 800 word blog post. You get a chance to work with some of the industry thought experts we have here on staff. And again, from what I've seen and playing my part in the process, it's extremely I lost it. It's extremely rewarding.
Yeah, I think it's a great experience that we offer here, and I think, to your point, maybe we can get Chad more involved.
That's right. Come see me, Chad.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of topics we can cover.
Definitely.
So yeah, that's it for my shameless plug.
Thank you.
It's all good, man. No, I think the first thing that's going to happen is me and Chad got to discuss. We got to discuss the future, what's going on, what is our next step. So that's still in the making, but something that we have discussed prior is just the CFT certificate. Not a certification, but a certificate in that I think it's relatively small, a couple assessments here, and you write a brief thing on it. But I think terrorist financing, counter-terrorist financing, I should say, is important. It's an eye-catching thing. It's interesting. And just to get a different perspective on a different typology that exists out there, because maybe what you see there is different than a typical fraud investigation or stuff like that. So I think that might be the next route. However, we'll have to discuss and we'll have to see what's available. But again, never staying stagnant in where we're at right now. it's great we have these certifications, but what's next? You know, it's always looking towards the next opportunity, and I think that's kind of what fuels us and what makes us better as analysts, as people, you know, just to continue to provide and be an asset to this company.